Hello, hello, hello. This is Dr. Janice R. Love, also known as the First Lady Coach, and welcome to session number 7 of my Pearl Power series. Let's go. As we go into this tonight, we are still again in the Pearl Power Holiday Series, and we are focused on I Second That Emotion. And tonight, we are going to be talking about from worried to witness. From worried to witness. All right, so we have already established that emotions are instinctive state of mind, a natural instinctive state of mind that will affect our mood. It is also kind of determined sometimes by our circumstances or even our relationships. And we have focused on 6 different emotions, and everything that we have talked about have been in one of these emotions, whether that's fear, anger, surprise, sadness, joy, or love. Typically, we start out with one that is considered a challenge or negative, and we move that person to the love, joy side. Can you second that emotion? All right, so again, tonight we are going to be focused on from worry to witness. And worry obviously exists in the fear realm of the emotion wheel. All right, so let's talk a little bit about worry. We all know what worry means, right? There's a reason why in the Bible it says, I don't know how many times, somebody said like 365 times it says fear not, or some form of do not worry. And there's probably a reason for that, because for some reason we have challenges with worry. So first of all, let me define what worry is, okay? For as a definition, worry is being anxious or troubled about actual or potential problems. Again, being anxious or troubled about actual or potential problems. So it's not just the things that are going on in our lives, it's the things that we perceive could happen that cause us to be troubled and cause us to be worried. But on the other hand, let's talk about what a witness is. A witness is open profession of one's faith through words and action. So wouldn't you love from being worried to suddenly being a witness that can definitely confirm your faith through your words and your actions? All right, so let's talk a little bit about what where worry comes from. First of all, many times there's worry because maybe of our personal relationships. Have you been worried about a relationship either with your spouse or maybe your children, friends, coworkers? We are often worried about relationships, whether it is what somebody thinks of me, or maybe conversations were had to where things were said, and we worry about those things. We also worry about medical conditions. I know the older that I get, the more that I sometimes will be concerned about medical conditions, because things happen, right? Just last week, I had a colonoscopy. What was funny, you all, is that I had to start my prep right before I came live last Thursday, and I was worried that I wasn't going to be able to sit through this thing. Anyway, we worry about medical conditions. So I was worried about getting that done. We worry about our jobs, whether or not something can happen on our jobs, whether we are meeting the need, things that go on at the job. Even traumatic past experiences, we worry about those, especially those that have affected us in some kind of way. Then there are genetics. Think about if there is something that runs in your family, maybe from a perspective of a medical illness or an ailment, or a behavior, alcoholism or something like that. Think about something that might run in your family. Many times we might place ourselves at worry because we are concerned about whether or not that's going to happen to us. So I have this thing in my family that I'm always telling my sisters that whatever my mom had, for some reason, I seem to get things. And so, as I get to certain ages and she was experiencing those kinds of things, at times I can find myself worried about that, especially if I have some kind of symptom, right? All right. So there have been numerous surveys done that ask women what they tend to be worried about most. And I'm going to focus on women who are over 50. Okay. Some of the things that we worry about. Some people think we worry about getting older, which of course we do a little bit of that, right? But it is what it is, right? We also may worry about our looks, but again, it is what it is. And if there's nothing out there that can help us, it just is what it is, right? So we might be irritated by those things and bothered by those things, but they're not necessarily worries for us. Let me tell you some of the things that women who are typically over 50 may tend to be concerned about. So things like being late or running out of time to do something. As we age and maybe we had some goals or some dreams that we started early in our lives, and now we feel like we might be running out of time and aren't able to get those things done. There's a fear of not having enough money. Can you second that emotion? Have you ever had that fear that, okay, I need to get it all I can now because later I might not be able to work or whatever. And we have this fear of not having enough money. And then there's the fear of not living up to your full potential. And that is why we so often find ourselves trying to read, trying to read self-help books and other things, because sometimes we feel like we have not lived up to our full potentials. And then one of the things was not remembering everything we have to do. Our memory starts to, sometimes we forget stuff, right? And so that tends to be a worry of many women, especially those over 50. Can you second that emotion when it comes to worry? All right. So again, there is a reason why the Bible addresses the fear. In the Bible addresses through many situations. It has often been said, fear not. And again, many of you may have one of your favorite scriptures as Philippians 4, 6, and 7. You know it by heart, right? Because again, it tells us not to worry about anything, but to basically pray about everything. And we know it by heart. I mean, I have read it in every translation, and each time it encourages me. So think about your own life. What are you worried about? And how far is that worry going in your life? So as always, during this series, what we have done is we have gone and we have looked at a woman who was dealing with worry. So tonight we are going to be dealing with the bleeding woman, or who we often know, the nameless woman that we know as the woman with the issue of blood. Everybody can identify with her because, again, maybe you have had some physical challenges, but at the same time, many of the things that she worried about and was stressed about, we sometimes find out that we're stressed about those things too. So let's look at the circumstances that this woman was dealing with, okay? First of all, we know she had an illness, and it was a bleeding illness. Basically, she was menstruating all the time, right? Not just once a month. She was all the time. And in those days and times, we know it went on for 12 years, right? So 12 years says a lot, because when we've been dealing with something for a while and we know exactly how long we've been dealing with it, then it is a problem in our lives. It is a worry. It is a challenge. Many times, again, if we can say how long we have been dealing with an issue or a problem, it is at a point where it is a serious problem for us. Many times we feel like we are ready to give up, especially if it has been an extensive time. And again, think about in your own life what you have been dealing with. Now, there were a lot of things that came along with this illness that she had. And we'll talk about that as we go further into what her circumstance was. So circumstance 2, we know that she had tried everything. She had gone to doctors. She probably had read some books like we do. She had asked other people for advice. You ever had this problem? Can you tell me what to do? She probably went to therapy. Okay. I don't even know if they had it in those times, but that's what we do oftentimes when we are stressed and worried about things. We may go to therapy. We may go to the doctor to try to get them to fix our situation, especially if it is a physical illness. I remember when I was diagnosed with Graves' disease, and I knew exactly how long I had been putting up with those symptoms. I also had tried so so many things to try to manage those symptoms. And thirdly, she was isolated. Okay. Because of her illness, the way her illness worked was that in those days and times, if you were a bleeding woman, you could not be around anybody. In fact, you were considered unclean. You could contaminate other people. So she was in a situation where she couldn't be around people. She couldn't even go to church. Now, dealing with that, you need to be at church, right? You need somebody praying over you. You need something going on. But again, she could not go to church. She couldn't have any relationships, any normal relationships, any social relationships. People wasn't hanging out at her house, right? And again, if anybody touched her, they would be considered unclean as well. So it wasn't like she had a whole lot of friends and a whole lot of things going for her. Can you second that emotion? Have you been in situations where you have been in that situation a long time? You've tried some things and they just don't seem to work, and you've even spent your good hard-earned money to try to fix it, right? And it's affected areas of your life, meaning there's certain things you can no longer do. There are certain things that you are anxious about doing. For instance, again, when I was diagnosed with Graves' disease, one of the challenges of that illness was that everything moves faster. So your digestion moves faster. So I was in a situation where if I ate something in public, within like 5 minutes, you were going to hear all this gurgling and all this loud noises, and I was going to need to step out of the room for a little while. So again, I got kind of anxious about being around people. So again, think about how often our worries and our problems keep us socially isolated, because sometimes we don't want to tell anybody what's going on with us. All right, but I'm not going to leave you there. What we are going to do is we are going to go. I'm going to show you how this woman went from worry, again, because she had plenty to worry about, to witness. Are you all ready for the answer? First of all, can you second that emotion that we are dealing with worry and we want to move from worry to witness? All right. So remember what a witness was. Everybody remember what a witness was? Open profession of one's faith through words and actions. So here's the first thing that she did in order to move from worry to witness. First thing is that she was determined to be whole. In fact, she said, I would be well. She had already thought about it. She had dealt with it long enough. And she says, you know what? I am going to be well. And I am going to do whatever I need to do in order to be well. So again, that's the first thing, is we have to have that determination that we're going to be whole, that we're not going to let this worry take us down any further. We're not going to let it control our life. We are going to be made whole. So that is the very first thing she did in order to move from worry to witness. All right. So you ready for the second one? The second thing she did in order to move from worry to witness was that her strategy included trusting Jesus. Now, look at the key word here. Her strategy included trusting Jesus. Two key words there, strategy and trusting. Again, she was determined. She was at the breaking point where she's like, I don't want to put up with this anymore. I am going to do something about it. Part of being a witness is being able to having the words and the actions. She said, I would be made well. And she decided to come up with a strategy as to how she was going to be well. And she knew, based on maybe what she heard, she knew that the way for her to be whole was going to be through Jesus. So again, that second thing she did was her strategy included trusting Jesus. Now, she had to trust him because, again, her plan was to touch the hem of his garment. And remember the problem with her touching other people, that she was going to make them unclean. So think about the risk that she was taking, but she was determined, and her strategy included Jesus. Ooh, that's good. I love it. So then finally, the third thing that she did in order to move from worry to witness was that she had the courage to share her transformation. Now, again, when you look at the whole story, and I hope that as I am talking about these different women in the Bible, that you are going back and reading their stories and really diving into it, so you can clearly see how God moved them from one emotion to one of joy, and one of hope, and one of happiness. So again, she was willing to, again, she had the courage to share her transformation. So her transformation, she could have touched the hem of the garment, and her plan was to walk away, right? But then Jesus had to call her out, because it wasn't necessarily for her to say, a woman, you need to acknowledge this. It was for other people. So again, her telling about her entire transformation made a difference for everybody else. It's not always about our agenda. Sometimes it's about God's agenda, what he will do in our lives in order to be able to bless somebody else. So she started walking away. Jesus said, who touched me? The disciples say, everybody could have touched you, Jesus. What you talking about? And she had to turn back around and said, it was me. Then she told her whole story, that she had dealt with this thing for 12 years. I can imagine the people around her like, oh, she's dirty, she's unclean, right? But she told her whole story. I've been dealing with this for 12 years. I made up in my mind, if I could just touch the hem of the garment, I would be made whole. I did it. I fought through the crowd. I did it, and I felt it work. So hallelujah. Isn't that wonderful? So again, she was willing to tell about her transformation. And we as women of God, women who our lives have been changed and transformed because of Jesus, what he has done for us. We have to have that courage to share our transformation with others. And so that is why so often clients will often come to me, is because they want to know how to tell their story. They want to be able to not hold back any longer. They want to be able to bless somebody else because of what Jesus has brought them to. So again, maybe they're coming in overwhelmed. Maybe they're coming with some worry about something. Maybe it's been long enough. They have held back long enough, and they are ready to be the woman that God created them to be. Only they need some clarity, or maybe they need a little more confidence. Clarity could be around who they are, who God created them to be, or that clarity could be about what it is that God wants them to do. And then they need that confidence. Again, it took this woman a whole lot of confidence to really tell her story, because y'all know, again, people were talking about her and like, oh, how dare she bring herself out here? Oh, I'm not going to say it. Anyway, and then again, they need that courage to be able to share their transformation. And sometimes we don't know how to clearly share our transformation in order to bless somebody else. All right, so now you know how she went from being worried to witness. And you too can do the very same thing. Again, do you know what it means to be chosen? Do you know what God has in store for you, and how he wants you to share your transformed life? And again, Romans 8:28, that all things work together for good for those who love God and who have been called according to his purpose. You've got to find out what that is. And again, if you have been called and chosen, then you definitely need to check out my Chosen mentoring program, coaching program, which you can learn about at janicerlove.com. All right, so that is it for tonight. Oh, let's see what we're going to be talking about tomorrow night. Ooh, this one, y'all got to be here for this one, okay? You got to be live for this one. Tomorrow night, we are going to be talking about from violated to virtuous. Again, from violated to virtuous. That is session number 8. All right. So